What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Week 3 players to buy low on. This is my favorite video each week because who doesn't love trading in fantasy football? There are a few names on the buy low model that I really like this week, but I can't go over all of them because there are like 20 names. So if you want to see the full list, check it out at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. There's also a link in the description. So let's start it off with someone who actually didn't make the model, and Curtis Samuel. Now, Curtis Samuel finished week 1 with 3 receptions for 32 yards. Pretty bad performance. Follows it up this week with 5 receptions for 91 yards. The interesting part about Curtis Samuel was that he led all players this week with 234 air yards on an elite 13 targets. That's 18 air yards per target and definitely points to him being a massive part of this offense. It's an absolutely crazy amount of volume, and there's a very real chance that he finally explodes this week when he plays the Cardinals. This team is the definition of a consolidated target share. They have 6 players total that have even received a single target this season, with 5 of them accounting for 98% of the targets, and with Moore, Samuel, Olsen, and McCaffrey accounting for 90% of their targets. That's unreal, and it means that they can all be productive even when Cam Newton just stinks. But if he steps it up, these guys have crazy high ceilings. So you should be trading for Curtis Samuel everywhere, and I'd want to be getting pieces of this offense because the public is definitely lower on them than they should be just because Cam Newton looks so bad. But they can be productive even while he's bad, and if he goes off, oh my goodness, they have a crazy ceiling. Next player to buy low on is Sammy Watkins. And now he finished 6th in this week's buy low model, and it's not surprising that he had a down week. The public looked at the matchup with the Raiders and said, oh, he's just going to crush. And they're right. The offense is going to crush because the Raiders aren't that good. But Paul Guenther has historically been successful at taking away the team's top wide receiver. He's not always successful, and Andy Reid is absolutely a coach that could outsmart him. But the Raiders found success this week in doing what they like to do, take away the top wide receiver. Watkins finished with a 6 for 49 stat line despite 13 targets and 139 air yards. It might be a little bit tough to buy low on him after his monster week 1, but there are enough people out there that don't think he's an elite wide receiver, so you could definitely be playing in a league with someone who thinks that week 1 was a fluke. But KC will still be without Hill for at least another month, and Watkins will continue to have value even when he's back. So if you can, try and trade for him now after his down week. Another player that the model wants you to trade for is John Brown. Now, Brown had a nice week 1 stat line, 7 for 123 and a touchdown, then posted 7 for 72 on 8 targets and 110 air yards this week. Those air yards make up a 45% team market share, and he's just the perfect fit with Josh Allen. There are actually leagues out there where John Brown is still a free agent, and that blows my mind. But you should be trying to get him on your team any way possible. If you're in one of those leagues where he's a free agent, well, yeah, you're putting in a claim to go get him. But people still think he's boom bust, and no one really believes in the Bills' offense. So I can guarantee you that you can still get him well below market value in most leagues. He's a wide receiver too right now, and I would not be surprised at all if it stays that way. But I can bet you right now you're in a league where he is not being valued as a wide receiver too. So trade for him. The biggest name that the model thinks you should trade for this week is Davante Adams. He comes in at the 3rd highest value right now, and although it's extremely difficult to trade for players that are elite, like trying to trade for your Michael Thomas, your Tyreek Hill when he's healthy, your Julios, your Hopkins, your Adams, it's tough to trade for those guys, but this is when you should do it. Posted a bad week 1 and then an average week 2 for him. It was still good, but it was pretty average for him. He still doesn't have a touchdown through the first 2 weeks, and he's currently the wide receiver 42 in half PPR scoring. Now that's obviously not going to hold. He's top 20 in targets, top 30 in air yards, despite playing the Bears and the Vikings. These 2 matchups have resulted in the Packers ranking 23rd in pass attempts, despite historically being near the top of the league whenever Rodgers is healthy. I shouldn't have to say it, but Aaron Rodgers is an elite quarterback, and the Packers are going to score a bunch of touchdowns. And he still has a 27% target market share and a 33% share of the team's total air yards. Adams is going to explode, and it could very well come over the next 2 weeks when they take on the Broncos and the Eagles at home. So this might be the last time you can trade for Adams at any sort of discount. That's it for the wide receivers. Let's move on to the running back position with Leonard Fournette. Now, this one might feel a little bit gross. He's the running back 25 right now, and I've talked at length about how inefficient he is as a running back. But like I also said this summer, there's no one behind him. So he's going to play a ton. And he's really just the running back 25 because he hasn't scored yet. He's 21st in rushing yards and 8th in receptions. If he had 1 touchdown, he'd be a mid-running back too. And if he had scored twice, then he'd rank right ahead of Zeke as the running back 9. He ranks 7th among running backs in weighted opportunity ranking, mainly due to his 18% target market share. Fournette has been in on 85% of snaps this season, including 62 of 64 snaps last week. He's going to be an every down player whenever the games are at least remotely close. Foles might be out, but Minshew has actually looked pretty solid. So they should be able to remain competitive in most weeks. Are they going to get blown out sometimes? Sure. But most weeks, Minshew can keep this team competitive, which means that Fournette is going to be in on a boatload of snaps, and he's going to finish higher than he's currently rated. So he'll have every opportunity to succeed as long as he stays healthy. That's the main concern. But he's good to go right now, so we shouldn't just assume he's going to get hurt. The next running back is, of course, our guy, David Montgomery. Hopefully you traded for him last week because his market value just went up on Sunday, although it's not as high as it's going to be soon. Montgomery had 7 touches on 38% of snaps in week 1, while Mike Davis had 11 touches, so 4 more, on 53% of snaps, 15% more snaps. So when we looked at that at week 1, a lot of people got very concerned. But like I told you, rookie running backs don't always take over right away, and the Bears didn't do that with Jordan Howard. He didn't even play in the first week, and then he was very slow before fully taking over a few weeks into the year. This week, Montgomery was given 19 touches on 45% of snaps, while Davis had just 3 touches on 25%. We're already seeing them give the reins to David Montgomery, and it will not be long before his role expands even further, and he's getting 17 to 19 carries a game to go along with an expanded receiving game work. And as soon as that happens, he's going to be very difficult to trade for in fantasy. So you've got to get him right now before his value skyrockets. Honestly, that's really it for running back. No one else's value is so low that you just need to trade for them. So let's move on to the tight end position next with Zach Ertz. And I wasn't big on drafting Ertz this season. I knew his volume was going to come down. Everyone knew that. And he just wasn't going to post the same sort of year he did last season. He was being drafted like he was going to. But he's underperformed his total volume so far this season. And more targets have opened up due to injuries with the other skill position players. Alshon looks like he's going to miss this week, although it's still early, so we just don't know yet. Deshaun Jackson has a groin injury. Don't know the severity of that yet, but it's not good having a groin injury as a speed receiver. Plus, Dallas Goedert injured his calf again, something he had during the offseason. Through 2 weeks, Ertz ranks 8th among tight ends in fantasy points, despite leading the position by a good chunk in total air yards, while ranking 4th in weighted opportunity share and 2nd in target market share. Ertz is an elite tight end, and he's gonna break off a huge game very soon. So try and get him on your team before that happens, while his value isn't all that high right now. The only other tight end that I want to talk about this week is Mark Andrews. I'm sure the vast majority of you do own him, given that he was our top tight end target this season. But I know a lot of you are also trying to figure out what to do with him after these first 2 weeks, kind of thinking, is this production something I can expect going forward? Well, he's currently on pace for 128 receptions for 1,760 yards and 16 touchdowns. So no, the production is not going to continue. He's played the Dolphins and the Cardinals, which are 2 of the best possible matchups for a tight end, and really for any player. But that doesn't mean he won't continue to be an elite tight end. While his overall numbers are impressive, his air yards also rank 3rd among tight ends, so the production wasn't lucky. And while the offense has been great, his share of the offense has also been elite. I might be concerned with the stats if he wasn't commanding a massive chunk of his own offense, meaning that once the matchups got more difficult, maybe he'd start to underperform, but he's used as much, if not more, than any other tight end in football. He's third in percent of team market share of air yards at 26%, and he's first in team target market share at 27%. Plus, he's second in weighted opportunity rating among tight ends. They use him like the 49ers use Kittle, more than the Giants use Ingram, and more than KC uses Kelsey. So while he's not going to post the greatest season ever for a tight end, he doesn't have to be for us to consider him a top 5 tight end this season, because that's what he is. Yet there are a lot of leagues out there where Andrews owners are not going to place a top 5 tight end value on him. So if you own him, don't trade him away because he's an elite tight end. And if you want him, you should be looking to give up top 5 tight end value for him. And if anyone is asking for less than that, we'll take it. Because remember, like I said last week, you don't need to dominate every single trade that you do. If you think there's a trade out there that's going to help both teams, then there's no need to send out lopsided trades. Figure out what your opponent needs and construct a trade that's going to benefit the both of you. So that's your little trade nugget for the week. And that's actually it for tight ends. Typically, we're not going to talk about many tight ends. And we're also not going to talk about many quarterbacks. It's pretty rare to get a trade done for quarterback. With so many options on free agency and with everyone drafting quarterbacks they like, you're really not going to get a trade done. But if you really want an upgrade, here are some guys that I would be looking to get moving forward because they've underperformed this season. Aaron Rodgers currently ranks as the quarterback 21. Well, that's not going to continue going forward. Jared Goff, although I was a little bit down on him this season, he's currently the quarterback 20. I'm pretty sure he's going to finish higher than that. And Kyler Murray, love him this season, currently the quarterback 12. Pretty sure he's going to finish above that. So those are guys I'd be targeting if I'm trading for a quarterback. But I can honestly say I don't think I've ever actually traded for a quarterback. Just look on free agency because you can probably figure it out that way. One last player that I did want to mention because I was looking through the stats and it's kind of hilarious how bad he did last week and just how bad he is in general. And it's Davante Parker. He was 10th in total air yards this past week and commanded 7 targets. He turned that into a 0-0-0 stat line. Not a single touchdown, a single yard, or a single reception. Preston Williams is going to be taking over the top wide receiver job in Miami sooner rather than later. And although that's really not all that valuable given how bad Miami is, it's something to note that he's got raw talent and the guy ahead of him is awful. So, those are the buy low candidates this week. Remember, I have more players to buy low on at the website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. So if you want a bigger list, then head on over there and check it out. There's also a link in the description of this video. But that's it for this one. I hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting that like button? If you're new here, how about subscribing to the channel? But thanks for watching.